Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the 8th day of our summit. So this week, it's one of the more critical weeks in the US. And I got an email yesterday from Supreme Master International Association saying that they have given an award for the white paper that we wrote. And so I posted that on Facebook, and people were congratulating and telling me that you were a trailblazer. And I was thinking, my God, all I did was to tell the truth. And what a world we live in when telling the truth is considered a trailblazing act. And so I'm really pleased to welcome my guests today, Margaux Khoury and Reese, because they have been trying to tell the truth. And they've been trying to tell the truth in the business arena with Margaux and in the political arena with Laura. So they're trying to get our businessmen to tell the truth, to send their profits where it really is needed. I mean, it is impossible to run a business without profits because otherwise it will not be sustainable. But whenever you accumulate profits, what do you do with it? Is it for our own personal interest or is it for the interest of the community? So that's the question we are going to be talking to Margaux about. And with Laura, it's why aren't politicians doing the right thing? Why are they focusing on just wet markets when we know that all animal agriculture is causing these pandemics? So when will people start telling the truth? When Dr. Fauci is just focusing on wet markets, and he doesn't tell Americans that if they just went on a whole food plant-based diet, they can literally reverse their diabetes, literally reverse their heart disease, and they won't be showing up in emergency rooms. The showing up in emergency rooms will be a lot less. So why aren't people saying that? And this is what Laura has been working on. She started the Vegan Justice League with Connie Spence. And she's trying to get our politicians to start telling the truth and putting their money where they really say it is. So thank you both very much for joining us today. Let me start with you, Laura. I know that you're in Italy, the epicenter of the COVID-19 in Europe. Tell us how you got there and tell us how you started the Vegan Justice League.
Well, how I got to Italy was just, it's really not that interesting. We were living in Malaysia and we wanted to move somewhere else and we thought we'd try Europe. So I just asked my husband, you want to try Italy? And he said, okay, that sounds good. And then we came to Verona, just kind of like picking it on a map. Mm-hmm. And then your second question is probably more interesting. How did I get into the Vegan Justice League? I went vegan just under 3 years ago. And soon afterwards, I realized that that was just the baseline and I needed to do more. So I started doing activism, started a local Anonymous for the Voiceless group. And then I realized I started reading about subsidies in America, and I started looking at the USDA site and looking at how animal ag was being funded. And even though I'm spending my dollars over here, I'm still an American citizen and there's still my tax dollars going there. And I was just outraged at just the amount of money that animal ag was hoovering up. Whether demand went down or not. And, we need to do outreach. We need to show Joe Public that eating a plant-based diet, if everybody adopted that, a lot of problems in the world just go away. They just go away. We need to do that. But at the same time, we need to remove the obstacles to getting us to a place where our choices personally every day actually make a difference. And we also need to do that outreach with policymakers and with power brokers. So like Margaux with business, in the business world, also in the politics world, you have to do that outreach with people who need to hear it, who are setting policy. Unfortunately, at least in the US, corruption is the legal way we do politics now. This is not the US I grew up in the 70s, where money was actively, we were trying to keep money out of politics. Obviously money was in politics, but at least we, as a nation, my recollection was that most people agreed that having unfettered private money funding politics was not a good thing, was just corrupt. The other word for it is corruption. And right now we're at that point. And so that's what we're fighting. The reason why I got into politics, like the moment was, I was outraged about the subsidies. I'd been reading about it for like a week, and I just had this simmering anger that my taxes were being used to pay, you know, animal exploiters and killers, and ruining the planet with environmental destruction, methane emissions, the whole bit. And I was on Reddit, because that's what I do in my downtime. I'm kind of a Redditor. And I happened upon a AMA with this guy named Billy. My husband's saying they might not know what an AMA is. An AMA is an Ask Me Anything. So somebody goes on there, they're verified, and you can ask them anything. And on Reddit, people ask ridiculous questions. But he's a lobbyist, and he was saying, I'm trying to bring lobbying to the people. So I saw his AMA, and I wrote that night, I wrote an application, and then within a week, he's like, yeah, if you can crowdsource $5,000, I'll lobby for you. And so that's what we did. I ended up in DC last February, and Vice News followed us around one day, and we came up with some legislation. And then I brought that to Vegan Justice League, came across Connie Spence, who is just a force to reckon with. And around the same time I was looking at subsidies, she was too, and we decided, well, let's just team up. So I'm sorry, that was kind of a long answer, but you did ask me 2 questions.
Yes. No. So that was perfect. Thank you. Yeah, we needed to hear that. In the 70s, there was a law passed called the Sunshine Law. Do you know much about that and the impact it has had on politics in the US?
I'm sorry, you were breaking up a little bit. What was the law called?
It was called the Sunshine Law. So basically, it was a law that said that all congressional votes have to be public. So prior to that law, people voted their conscience. I mean, they didn't have to disclose how they voted. Okay, so in any voting system, like if you are forced to tell who you voted for, then you are subject to pressure from moneyed interests. I mean, someone comes and gives you a bribe and says, you know, hey, I want you to vote for me, and you take that money. But if your vote is secret, you can do whatever you want in the voting booth. Okay, so money really doesn't influence anymore the voting. But by passing the Sunshine Law, we made our political system a system of legal bribery. And so, have you looked into getting people to, getting lobbyists to remove the Sunshine Law?
So my understanding of when I vote is that who I vote for is secret.
Right. But not in Congress. See,
in Congress, right.
Right. So by making congressmen special, that their votes have to be public, we kind of made them subject to
corruptible.
Yes.
Yeah, because I mean, I just came across a case the other day where some politicians. I was rewatching Plant Pure Nation, and there's that whole segment on the Kentucky state legislature, and the majority of them agreed with this bill that was being proposed, And the
Right.
bill was innocuous. It was just a statement of fact. It wasn't even anything that compelled anybody to do anything. And it got defeated because the lobbies, the animal ag lobby, would see who voted for what, exactly what you're saying with the Sunshine Law.
Right.
And as a result, people who, even though they agreed 100% with the law before them, they voted no because they knew that in order to be reelected, they need money for their campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And that even if they don't take money from animal ag, the animal ag has enough money to just sink them through marketing, through ads, through a hate campaign, and they won't win re-election. So even if they're not taking the money for their campaign, they're beholden to the interests of big animal ag, and it's just heartbreaking. So that's the part I've been kind of more focused on, is the actual money in politics side. But yeah, it makes sense. If your vote's not secret, even without the money in politics, you're corruptible.
Right. So I think that if we focus our efforts on key aspects like that, we could probably get maximum leverage for the money we are using. You know, this is well known that the Sunshine Law was the reason for this. There is a clear difference in the correlation between laws that are passed and the interest of the rich, starting after the Sunshine Law was passed. You know, you could clearly see it change.
Well, now I have homework to do, because I mean, I hearkened back to the 70s, but honestly, I was a little girl at that point. But I just remember going over to my parents' friend's house, Dorothea, and she was very political, and I would sit and listen to the political conversations and arguing over socialism and communism and the domino theory. I mean, because that was a big thing back then. Right. I just remember that one of the very few things that everybody agreed on, even though everybody in the room had different opinions about how the society should be run, the number one thing they all agreed on was that money corrupted politicians. And it just seems like people think money's good in politics now. It's absurd. I don't know. It's like, I don't get it. But yeah, thank you for pointing out the Sunshine Law. That makes sense.
Fascinating. Thank you for that. Margaux, speaking of money and speaking of profits, the reason why industry is able to just harness its resources is because profits are supposed to be for private use, right? Mm-hmm. But you have this concept of giving away the profits from your company for public purposes, for community purposes. So explain to us how that works.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I'm also really interested to do more with Laura, because it all sort of goes hand in hand what we're talking about. It's a complete shift in the system and how we think. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I actually, we just decided this recently, Dr. Rao, that our company, our for-profit company outside of the activism that I do, to give 100% of profits after the company's employees are paid, everything's taken care of. We give every penny after that to animal advocacy and just organizations that are making a real impact in the world. And we've decided to call it Impact, actually. It's the first time anyone's hearing about it. It's a company called Impact that will house all the products that we launch into the world. And I've been doing this for 9 years. But it's the first time I've decided to do something like this. Not only that, though, I think it's really important to note that it's not only one company doing this. We need to encourage many for-profit companies and other companies out there to do the same thing, because we can. I have so much to say about this topic. When I read your white paper, when I read the mission, Vegan World 2026, all of that, it just became so clear what we need to do as a business community. And I even look at the work we're doing, Dr. Rao, in the farm transformation movement as a business, because farms are a business as well. So we need to kind of, shift things on that level. And that's what I'm super happy doing.
Right. Thank you. So yeah, you touched upon farm transformation.
Yeah.
This is the idea that people who are farming animals should be helped to transition to farming plants or to grow food for us, right? So
Yes.
tell us more about that. What are you planning to do with that, and how do you plan to implement that?
Absolutely. So this all started when I stepped foot on a friend's farm long time ago. I just felt the urge deep within me to help actually the farmer because I actually saw them suffering as well. And of course the animals. I've been vegan for 10 years, just under 10 years, and my whole family's vegan for ethical reasons, environmental reasons, and of course health benefits are amazing. But then after doing this, I knew that change had to happen because this system and the industry and how the food system is built has been a complete mistake. I knew right then and there that something had to change for the world. And then I spent the following few years researching as much as I could. I'm not, an environmental researcher or scientist, but I spoke to so many experts in this field, environmental experts, experts in agriculture. It shocked me to my core. It's so obvious that we need to shift to a global plant-based economy. And we need to do it faster. As all of this needs to, in my opinion, my personality is like, okay, we need to just get on it, but we need to collectively understand what's happening. And it's not just about food, right? It's about, like you say, Dr. Rao, complete shift to normalize nonviolence, caretaker economy. And so I decided also to write this book with, it's called Farming for the Planet, and my co-author is a former rancher and an amazing person, Renee King, and I'm just so excited for that because it's going to shed a lot of light on this topic for farmers specifically. There's no book written directly for farmers, and for climate healers, this book will be under the Climate Healer brand, and I really anticipate a lot of activists using it as well. So yeah, the farm transformation movement, there's so many people doing amazing work. And I just want to say, too, that, you probably know my opinion on this, we need to unify. We need to actually come together and raise this issue collectively so that it's heard.
Right. We need to start speaking with one voice that we want a vegan world for our this for the entire planet, right? And for the animals, for our survival. Yeah.
The vegan world thing is amazing because people, when I say it, think, okay, just food. It's not just food. It's, veganism is normalizing a world that's devout or free from exploitation of non-human animals and humans. So
right.
That's the exciting part for me.
That's what we are called to do now. That's what we have to think about in the chrysalis that we are in right now. I mean, I have spent now 3 weeks without seeing my granddaughter, and this price I'm paying better have some reward. Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, you're doing such an incredible job that I'm just really, happy to be part of the mission and also shed some light on it all and work with people like Laura and yourself. So it's really, really important. Thanks for the conversation.
Yeah, and Laura, the idea of helping farmers transition from animal-based farming to do things, making food forests, growing crops for human consumption. You would think that can be supported through public funds, right? So are you focusing on getting politicians to transfer the subsidies? Not saying that shouldn't give subsidies to farmers, but to transfer it towards the right purpose.
Right. Yeah, our lobbying group is called Agriculture Fairness Alliance, and we have a whole lobbying agenda that we're actually going to send to our members this week to vote on and set our priorities. And the first lobbying effort is to pass this at-risk farmers bill that I started with Billy Delancey at Lobbyists for Good. and he's still our lobbyist. Now he's our full-time lobbyist. We hired him full-time in October because we beat our goal of hiring a full-time lobbyist by December last year, because we were able to recruit enough members where we could pay him. So it was like, let's start now. So now he's lobbying full-time for that at-risk farmer bill. And what that bill would do is it's a voluntary pilot program that would help at-risk farmers. It would give them a lifeline where they could transition from animal farming to some sustainable, non-exploitive farming. It still stay on their land, escape consolidation, because the industry consolidation in all of the animal agriculture industries is just brutal to any independent producers. So it would give a lifeline to them to go do something else in maybe a specialty crop that's less consolidated, and they can be their own bosses and set their own rules. But it's expensive to do, as Renee, who Margot's working with, is well aware of how expensive those costs are. In terms of diverting subsidies, absolutely, that's the other part of our legislative agenda, is attacking the farm bill and trying to use it for specialty crop producers rather than animal ag producers. So that's part of it. There's a whole laundry list. The next farm bill should be coming up around 2023. So we're already planning exactly what pieces we want to change. But in the meantime, we're pointing out to farmers that we work with that they can, for example, sign up for the CRP program and rewild land that they were formerly using to grow soy on to feed their pigs, for example. And we're actively recruiting farmers to help us lobby for what we're lobbying for. And we've found that they're really receptive to our message, because we're not anti-farmer. We're all about giving farmers a lifeline to go do the right thing. And the thing that I'm really impressed with is the number of farmers I've met who, on one hand, they're steeped in carnism. They don't see what they're doing from an ethical standpoint as being wrong, but they do see the environmental damage. I wrote a scathing analysis of the environmental damage that Dan, this farmer in Wisconsin, is doing. And I asked him to read it and give me feedback. He's like, yeah, that's about right. He's like, why do you think I want to farm hazelnuts?
Right.
They're not necessarily motivated by ethics, but.
Now, in this emergency bill, which President Trump signed, where they come up with $2 trillion out of nowhere, right? How much of it is being funneled to animal agriculture?
So as near as I can tell, it's in the 30 billion area for ag, and maybe 14 billion is for animal ag, but I haven't seen the final numbers on it yet. That's the ballpark. I think this next House bill that's coming up, I have a feeling it's going to be even more. And the absurd thing is, the whole point of the Farm Bill was, I'm sorry, maybe I'm going on too long about this. I think about this stuff all day.
Yeah,
the thing about the Farm Bill was in the 80s, it took a turn. It used to be direct cash payments, and people saw that as problematic, because why should you pay someone when their product isn't selling? Right. So it went to insurance schemes. Well, there are many insurance schemes now. They're run through for-profit insurance companies, but the taxpayer still funds them. So there's some profits being funneled off by for-profit insurance companies. And ostensibly, they're covered by crop insurance. They're covered by ARC, PLC, margin protection coverage programs. There's a whole list of like the top 10 that we itemize on our website at veganjusticeleague.com. So when disaster strikes, when the economy dips, these insurance programs are supposed to protect farmers. But then every 6 months, they still get a $12 billion bailout from the market facilitation program, a one-off $18 billion program there. And then in the last package, of course, they got another round of that. And it's just going to the big guys. They're just lining their pockets. It's a total racket. Yeah, some small producers are getting the money. They do. But it's not enough to keep them in business. And it just begs the question, these insurance schemes, so if they're not adequate, why are they even there? Maybe we need another solution. Maybe we just need to help them transition out of markets that aren't where they're not able to make money. The money in animal exploitation for the small guy isn't there anymore. It's all going to the top.
Right. What is the situation in Europe with the subsidies? Is it similar or is it different?
My understanding is that it's similar in that it's heavily subsidized. Like in the EU, there's a lot of subsidies going to, for example, Poland, but they're not necessarily insurance schemes. They're a lot of direct payment type stuff, but it's on the same order of magnitude as the US. And as a result, you can map where the subsidies go and you can see where the water pollution is. And it's just like in the US. The pig farms in Italy are just as bad as the pig farms in North Carolina.
So is there any discussion in Europe, conversation in Europe about how these facilities are the source of the type of viruses that are locking us down now?
Among my vegan friends, yeah.
Right.
But not a lot beyond that. I'm working with a lobbyist in, I think she's in Bosnia. And she's with the Save movement, and we've been talking about how do you get people to see it. It's the same problem here. It's the same problem I'm having with all the volunteers at AFA and Vegan Justice League. How do we get people to see that it's animal ag? I think the key is, I've been kind of thinking maybe we talk about farmed animals, although wet markets aren't necessarily farmed animals, but there are a heck of a lot of farmed animals in wet markets. Thinking back in Malaysia, the chickens were all alive. They'd kill them right in front of you. The pigs were hanging up there. There were a lot of farmed animals there, but yeah, it's tough to get through to people on that. Sorry, I kind of went all over the place again.
No, this is good. This is good. Margaux, how do we get people to transition? Is it like, is every case an individual case that we need to handle on an farm by farm basis?
I mean, yeah, for farmers, I would say yes, but this is actually, as I was hearing you talk, Laura, I'm just thinking this is actually a global issue. You know, we can talk about borders and countries and all this, but it is a global issue. Government is subsidizing industries that are unsustainable and not eco, and destroying the very thing that they want to, they're claiming in their narrative that they want to save, which is the earth. So it's such a, like, you know, so it's, yeah, I mean, and I've talked to farmers as well. I just want to make this point, that the farmers that I've talked to, and of course you're talking to some. Renee is doing an incredible job with the RAP program. I'm in awe at what she's actually accomplished. When I talk to farmers on all scales, most of them are desperate for a way out. And what this is going to do is we need to give them, help them find a way out. I had someone say to me the other day, why are we helping farmers? They're hurting animals and they're doing this. They're the people we need to help, because let's face it, the world at large sees it as such a noble, wonderful thing. We're providing food for the earth. Let's keep providing, let's help the farmer keep providing food, help them with grow an edible forest and do things sustainably. But at the level that we're talking in government, there's certain things that's going to motivate government to either change, keep doing what they're doing, but in a different way. You know, they can keep funding farmers with the condition that they transition to sustainable agriculture. So it's a huge, huge topic, but I do see it as a global issue. Did that answer your question, Silas? I'm not even sure.
Yeah. No, it is a global issue, but it's sort of individual, right? Depending on where you are, the kind of crops you can grow is different.
Every area is different for sure in terms of the farm and all that. And also, I want to encourage how we speak to individuals as well as activists or as people, doing this work. It's really important we understand that we need them as allies, and that we have, like you said earlier, Laura, we don't have anything against the actual farmer. It's what they're farming, and it's how they're doing it for the earth. So yeah, I love that question.
Yeah, it's a system, right? It's the, like, I think Viktor Frankl actually said that, he was saying there's no such thing as collective guilt.
Right.
Part of a system that did this. And he, of course, he was speaking during about the Nazi era and what happened there. But we are doing something very similar to animals, right? Didn't Isaac Singer say that as far as animals are concerned, all people are Nazis?
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's such a controversial.
Right, yeah.
When I was reading Eternal Treblinka, Charles Patterson's book, I mean, to call this a Holocaust or whatever, Gary Ruskin said it. So it's kind of true. And also, I mean, what we're treating animals as mere objects. We're treating them like purses. And this is the ethical side of everything. But I'm super motivated now more than ever. And I'm turning the COVID situation and the pandemic right around and using it as a major positive in terms of what the earth is trying to tell us.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And what we need to do.
Message is always tell the truth. Unless you tell the truth, you're not going to solve the problem, right?
Yeah. And the truth always comes out.
Always comes out, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, both of you, for the conversation. I'm sure there are plenty of questions out there from the audience. I'll throw it open now.
I just wanted to mention real quickly that I wanted to say the at-risk farmer program, we consulted quite a bit with Renee and reviewed the legislation with her team, her experts. So it's kind of, you say it's sort of modeled after RAP, and I see she just wrote that. So I've been wanting to let everybody know that when that's passed, it will be the kind of legislation that helps organizations like hers and farmers directly to transition in the mode that she and her experts have developed. So yeah, I thank her for being such a trailblazer on that, because we definitely benefited from her wisdom and her team's wisdom.
Absolutely. That's where, from experience, it comes out from experience.
Yeah, because I was just outraged and trying to put things together.
Right.
She was actually doing the hard work.
Right. No, that's awesome. Thank you for devoting your lives to this cause.
Yes, we have some questions coming in. Ray asks this question for Laura. How tied to the protein myth are the supports for animal agriculture? In Canada, we've started subsidies for plant protein, which could be the formula where subsidies shift from animals to plants. But protein can be scientifically proven as overrated, as both a nutrient and a commodity.
So, I mean, in terms of the legislative options that we're considering right now, there's a few things where we're touching on reframing the protein myth. So we're trying to look at programs that already exist and alter them to favor plant-based proteins versus animalized proteins. But I agree that the whole idea that people need more and more and more protein, that needs to be combated as well. So for example, there's SNAP Ed. So SNAP is the food stamp program. And there's SNAP Ed, where the USDA rolls out, actually I think it's the Food and Nutrition Service, rolls out education for people who are recipients about what's good nutrition. So one thing we could do is advocate for a SNAP education program, SNAP Ed, that would focus on plant-based diets and what the benefits are. So that's an example where we could kind of take existing programs and shift them. But it's frustrating talking to people, especially, I guess, politicians who think they need to have more protein. It's like, you need less. And it doesn't have to go through an animal. I'm not really sure if that answered Ray's question, but hi, Ray. I know Ray.
Great, thank you. Another question comes in. Laura, do we need to wait for the at-risk farmer bill to pass before we can actively work with farmers in our states?
No, actually, thank you for asking that. We are trying to find farmers right now, because the more farmers we find who read that legislation and who, when we ask them if that program was available to you now, would you like that program to be available to you now? And they say yes, we say, okay, well, let's talk about what struggles you're facing, and talk about what it might look like if it passes. And then we'd like to meet with their representatives and bring them into a lobbying call to pitch at-risk farmer. And for every farmer who does that, it just really empowers our message, because it's one thing for me to go in and say, oh, let's do this because here's the environmental math, like the methane, this is the methane story, and this is the water pollution story, and this is the algae blooms. But I don't have the standing that a real farmer in their district has, going to on a call with the politician and saying, I'm dying, I need a lifeline. This is a lifeline I will happily grab if it's in front of me. They'll introduce it. They'll vote for it. It's a no-brainer. This is one of the cases where even if they're getting money from big ag, it's a voluntary program. It's a pilot program. It can kind of go under the radar. I don't think they're going to get a lot of flack for it. So even a politician who's beholden to the big money I was just talking about, they could probably find a way to vote yes on this, especially if we have a farmer or two in their district who are demanding they vote for it, because they can, like the big animal ag lobby, they use farmers all day long as their poster children for like, oh, look at this poor farmer who we represent. Meanwhile, they're representing mega corporations.
Right.
But we're actually working with small farmers and mid-sized farmers. We're not representing megacorps. We're not representing Smithfield and Tyson.
Excellent. Ray has another question, a comment first. Laura said cash from the farm bill was a rejected system because why pay for a product that people aren't buying? So now we have a system where the government buys the products that people are not buying. Just an observation. Question, how many farmers see opposition to farm bill securities as inherently anti-farmer? Is there a sharp distinction between smallholders and corporate growers?
The farmers I've been talking to time and time again say, we don't want a handout. We just want to be able to farm our land and make money doing it, which, okay, there's a lot of risk involved in that. But the things they identify that could help them are things that the National Farmers Union, for example, focuses on. And one is busting up monopolies. If monopolies were busted up and we reduced the amount of consolidation in the pig business, the egg business, the chicken business, then the small farmers would have more freedom and be able to keep more of their profits. I think it was something like 20 years ago, the contract grower or the chicken farmer made 50 cents on the dollar, and now it's like 14 cents on the dollar. Maybe that was that might have been pork, but it's really come down, and it's because of this consolidation. So the farmers I've been talking to, they don't want, they want insurance. They want something for protection in case of a hurricane,
Right.
but they don't want these monopolies controlling their lives and making them indentured servants. So efforts to bust up monopolies and counter the consolidation that's been rampant in the industry, I think they would like a lot more.
Great. Thank you. Another question is, how can everyone listening share the At-Risk Farmers Act with farmers they know? And that's asked by Renee, and she's posted a website, but tell us about it.
I was going to say, is that Renee? Yeah, thank you, Renee, for the prompt. So on afa.farm or agriculturefairnessalliance.org, we registered afa.farm because it's just quicker to type, but they're the same website. You can just go to legislation, so it's /legislation, and you can find it from the menu really easily, and it's called At-Risk Farmer. And we have a little intro where we explain in not loaded terms at all, just very much something that a farmer could read and go, yeah, I agree with that. And then it has the actual text of the bill. It's really short, pilot program, $5 million a year, although we're thinking about increasing it because we think we might be able to. And there's some reporting and learning going along with it. And yeah, Renee's team was really helpful in crafting out what that reporting should be, which is actually one of the components of the bill that people on the Hill, like the staffers who are the ag experts, that's part of the bill that they appreciate the most, is that that's so well thought out. Like they take it seriously because it clearly came from people who knew what they were talking about in terms of the reporting. Yeah, so thanks, Renee. And Ray and the whole team.
Okay, another question. What are future-proofed agricultural activities? Is this is the cash crop model an obsolete system that has more to do with global markets than feeding local communities? Switching from ranching to row cropping is somewhat lateral compared to food, forest, and permaculture. Oh, I don't see a question here, sorry. There's a little bit more. He did say, when Trump botched trade agreements, farmers were given huge consolations. Do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I kind of heard a question in the beginning, which was kind of, okay, if these systems don't quite work, how do you establish a system that does? I'm not opposed to insurance subsidies. What I'm opposed to is the insurance subsidies being, or the insurance being doled out by for-profit companies, which take subsidized premiums. 60% of the premiums are paid by the tax, by Uncle Sam. And then when farmers go to file claims, the payments are also subsidized by Uncle Sam. And then there's a formula that requires our government to pay these for-profit insurance companies a certain percentage for their overhead based on how much business they're doing. It's something around 22%. So let me just back up. These are for-profit insurance companies that get subsidies on the premiums and get subsidized when they pay out. They can't fail. What are they even doing in the system if we are paying for the subsidies and the payments? So what I would envision is booting the for-profit insurance companies, which if you do a little bit of Googling, you'll find out real quickly who they're attached to, but I don't really want to name them because they're really powerful. If we just had an insurance system, very simple, run by the USDA, the FSA, just run it from the government. Like insurance isn't something new. Like we know how to do that. We know how to administer insurance. And we would save a ton of money because we're not lining the pockets of the people who set up these for-profit insurance companies. So that's how I would steer it personally. And then for the Trump thing, I mean, it's, what am I going to add? You guys all know the situation there. I mean, he's just paying off people he wants to vote for him, as far as I can tell, and built to the tune of billions of dollars. Every time it's like $12 billion, $16 billion. Even the Puerto Rico relief, part of that, it was written so that the Department of Agriculture could send the agriculture relief anywhere in the United States that they wanted to, not to Puerto Rico. So even that was a subsidy to animal ag, or to ag. It's outrageous. I'm channeling my partner Connie right now. Usually she's the one who's like got the, and I'm, so Connie, thank you for that.
Thank you. I've got 3 more questions. One is about websites for legislation, if you would like to say where to go, and then I've got 2 more questions.
Yeah, the website, you mean for the legislation we're pitching? Well, right now, the only legislation you can see on our website is the at-risk farmer, because that's the one we're officially pitching. If you're a member, you'll be getting a poll very soon where you can vote on what legislation we focus on beyond that between now and the Farm Bill 2023. So it's afa.farm/legislation. That's at-risk farmer. And thank you for sharing all those links, Renee. I saw you comment on that. I really appreciate it. And if you know any farmers who might like the idea of being given a lifeline to get out of animal ag and go into something like strawberries, hazelnuts, even wheat, I encourage you to go to our volunteer section on AFA, and you'll find a farmer help wanted ad, and get in touch with us, and we'll work with you to work with that farmer and lobby for the legislation with them. Every single farmer we add is a huge boost to our chances of getting this passed.
Great. Question for Laura.
And by the way, just real quickly, Renee has volunteered to be one of those farmers too. So thank you, Renee.
That's wonderful. Question for Laura. Do you think COVID-19 pandemic coming from animal consumption will help convince legislatures on the AFA's Farmer Transition Act?
Possibly. I think right now is a little early to go in hot with that messaging, because a lot of the staffers for reps are dealing with the front end of the outbreak at their states. Like New York's at the top, New Jersey's getting hit hard, other states are starting to get hit. So for us to go in and go, COVID is related to, I mean, pandemics can come from pigs too. But we are working on our narrative and our pitch for when we do go in, maybe in a month or so, and we definitely will be tying it in. And yeah, they need to hear it, and they know it. I think they know it. But any questions for Margaux?
I do want to add one thing though to all this too, and I think you had this on your. It's for-profit companies as well. I want to encourage everyone to support the movement, the farm transformation and everything we're doing, because I think you had it, Laura, right on the Vegan Justice League site. It said something like if 10% of vegans gave each $10. We'd equal, I forget the exact quote, maybe you can help me with it, but we would equal what animal agriculture is spending. Could you just, highlight that? It's super important to support this too.
Yeah, if 10% of US vegans pooled $10 per month each, we would easily out-lobby and out-campaign fund big animal ag.
Mm-hmm.
If just 1% give $10 a month, we could have a force in DC that would be like what the author of the book, The Business of America, is lobbying. He has these 2 classes, bronze lobbying and platinum. Bronze is like you have a few single issues, you've got like 3 lobbyists, and you push some agendas. Platinum is like you've got a lobbying army and you're crafting the narrative. 1% of vegans is bronze. 3% to 10% is platinum. So we just need to keep growing. And with AFA, 100% of member dues go to lobbying. We're a 100% volunteer organization. If we grow to the point where we need more organization, obviously we'll have people with salaries. But right now we're volunteer only, and 100% of donations go to lobbying because we want to form a lobbying army because we have to. They're going unopposed.
Yeah. The lobbying army, and also that, and the talking to farmers and transitioning them, actually, it's such a huge pillar in the entire mission and goal of this vegan world that you talk about, Dr. Rao. You know, it's like a major pillar of changing the food system. So I encourage anyone, any for-profit. Also, I just want to add a little aside on to companies. I'm just going to plug my computer in, but go sustainable in your packaging as well. You know, try as much as possible to do this packaging thing sustainable, even if you're an online company, and also look at that profit, because we can do so much as company owners and businesses for this movement and ultimately for the whole world. So.
You know, you mentioned your impact program. How do businesses sign up for that? Margaux? Margaux?
Yes, hi.
Oh,
Hi, I'm
mentioned
here.
your impact program. So I was just thinking, could you imagine if the insurance companies signed up for that, giving all their profits to? But sorry.
Yes.
I was just
absolutely, Laura. Yeah. No, ask the question again, please, because it did cut out.
Oh, I was just asking about your impact program. Like, how do businesses sign up for that? How does that work?
Yeah. That's coming soon, and it's basically the company name. It will be a not-for-profit, and it will donate basically 100% of profits to advocacy groups. And we're just teaming up now with some amazing people in the whole movement, including, you know, the Animal Save movement and people like this that we want to make sure that we continue to support and encourage other companies to support. And your program, what you're working on, and RAP as well, and of course, Climate Healers. So that's a big piece. That's a big piece of it. It's going to take all of us collectively supporting it financially and with our voices.
Cool, thank you for that. And we've got a couple of questions on Facebook. One of them is that we have live animal markets here in Florida and other places in the US, I'm sure. Do you have talking points as to how to approach them without starting a fight?
I mean, I would want to bring Renee on the call because that's her expertise.
Yeah.
I mean, if I think of me when I approach farmers, I'm pitching something that's an easy yes for them, right? It's like, oh, would you like this lifeline? So it's pretty easy to craft that language. I don't think I can answer that question. I mean, I could try, but I would just be making it up.
Margaux, do you have some ideas?
I think Renee's. Yeah, I think just the most common sense way, which is treat them like human beings and treat them like they are not, you know, the most evil people in the world. Sometimes activists take all of that to heart. And yeah, I agree with Renee. She's been doing it for a long time. The farmers that I've spoken to, it's quite simple. We're all giving them a lifeline. This is something that, you know, we want them to be super profitable growing plants. We want, and it's amazing. I mean, if you tell a farmer, hey, we have a way that you can, you know, use less water, use less land, not throw out dairy anymore. You know, there's a surplus, right, happening of dairy and all. They're throwing out the product because the demand isn't there anymore. And so if you give them that out, I'm telling you, it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I would just go with my basic Socratic method, ask questions with coming from a genuine place of curiosity and mirror to a degree. Like when they say something, you kind of repeat it back and as if you want them to expand upon it, and just let them talk and ask questions and let them guide the conversation. Let go of outcome, just establish the conversation of the relationship. So that's me making it up as I go. But
Yeah,
like I said,
Renee has.
Renee is the farmer whisperer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Renee has added a comment here that says, if you want to talk to a farmer, you have to meet them where they are, not where you are. Real conversations where they are heard is so important. So I think the things that you were just saying about making sure that you're asking questions and that you're sincere,
Yeah.
wanting to hear their answers. Oh, excuse me. Okay, I have another question. I'm wondering about the Future Farmers of America, and if either of you have worked with them or approached that organization in any way in terms of these bills or in terms of this information.
I have only kind of come across them through talking with people like Harold Brown and him talking about his experience with them. We could work with them potentially. I wouldn't be averse to exploring it.
Yeah, it seems like that's a group of people that could be influenced for the future and introducing them to alternatives to what they've grown up with. And
Yeah.
I think there are some other organizations that are trying and highlighting things like kids that are in 4-H that are choosing to send their animals to sanctuary instead of to slaughter is helpful. But I'm thinking that there's probably a lot more that we could put our heads together and figure out how to influence that group of young people.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be discussed there. That something could come out of a discussion for sure. I bet a useful plan.
Yeah. And I have another question on Facebook is, does Tarragon help with recycling packaging?
Sorry, that was with recycling packaging. I'm not sure. I guess the packaging comment was just look at being more sustainable in everything that we do, moving forward, and it affects everything, the earth and animals. So we used in our product like a paperboard that is biodegradable, compostable, and I think that's a super important piece moving forward as well. Even though animal agriculture is the leading cause of climate change, it's really important to mention and talk about the other aspects of what's happening. So yeah, I think all of us can collectively do that. And about this discussion, the unification, I think it's happening. And I think all of us, Dr. Rao, you've brought so many people together. It's absolutely amazing. And I think we need to kind of take it up to another level in terms of who's hearing it, what's happening, because we can talk about this for many, many years to come, or we can, make it happen. So thank you for that.
And the question was actually about TerraCycle, not Tarragon. It just got typed in, and I read the question as it was written, but it was actually, the word was actually TerraCycle. I'm not sure that changed the answer at all, but spell check is a wonderful thing. And that on Facebook, there are a number of links to different aspects of the conversation that we've been having. So if people want to go and check that out, that would be really helpful. And that's the end of the questions. There have been lots of people with a lot of gratitude for this conversation on Facebook.
Excellent.
Awesome. We have a question in the Q&A box. So I'll take that one now. That is from Miles. He says, here is the definition of veritas from Google. In Roman mythology, veritas, meaning truth, is the goddess of truth, a daughter of Saturn, called Kronos by the Greeks, the titan of time, perhaps first by Plutarch, and the mother of Virtus. The elusive goddess is said to have hidden in the bottom of a holy well. My belief, and I am a man, is that truth is intrinsic more in the feminine than in the masculine. That is why, as a male, I now recognize that I need to facilitate democratic womanism, as Alice Walker writes and speaks about. Does democratic womanism have a presence in your governance? Is it something your organization might research? Have you considered reaching out to Alice Walker? I wonder what her thoughts on veganism might be. Thank you and all the womb men who are, in my opinion, really leading for saving Mother Earth.
That sounds like a question addressed to me, democratic womanism, but I mean,
Okay.
if Laura and Margaux want to address that, I'd be happy to. Yeah. Basically, we're going to be talking about that tomorrow with Jamin Shively and Nolan Strait. Basically, it's about collective intelligence. How do we get the truth out in our deliberations? How do we get it to surface so that we are actually making decisions based on reality and science, as opposed to pretending something is true when it isn't, or vice versa, which is what's happening now. People don't even talk about animal agriculture, and yet they're trying to solve this problem. Right? How can we do that? We can't continue doing that and remain a viable species on this planet. So I guess that that's a good segue into our discussions for tomorrow. And I want to thank both of you for having this conversation and giving us your time. Are there any last minute things that you want to say that you didn't get a chance to say because of the questions?
Well, I'd just like to thank you, Dr. Rao, for having us on. I'm so happy Renee joined. She's on our board of directors of AFA. I didn't point that out at the beginning, but I meant to. It's just been, we're lucky to have her on our team. And I would say, like, a call to action. If you know any farmers who want to help us pitch At-Risk Farmer, I know this is very transactional, but it's on the top of my mind right now because I really want this legislation to go through. And I'm really hoping that we increase the budget for it, because I think transitioning farmers is a necessary first step to a lot of the other systemic or systematic legislation that just keeps carrying on like a zombie that we need to undo. And if we don't have this piece in place, well, we need this piece in place to help change farming in America. But if we don't have this piece in place, it's really hard to argue for taking away these insurance subsidy schemes.
Right.
So anybody wants to help, you can go to afa.farm/help wanted and check out and volunteer. It's fun working on this crew. I love everybody who's on our team. So thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Dr. Rao. And also, Laura, thanks for the work you do. And I'm excited to get more into, supporting it through our company and otherwise. And the books that we're talking about are really, really unbelievably important as a resource for activists, but also for the world at large. And I'm so happy, Renee, you're so vocal today on the, through the chat. But I appreciate you a lot too and what you've done. So, and I want to encourage everyone, as I said earlier, to collaborate more. Kind of leave, every egos or whatever it's called, and just really collaborate for the actual cause. So, thank you so much for that.
Awesome, and we'll see you both hopefully on April 18th, and we'll have an all-day 9 to 5. We're going to just throw it open for questions and discussions. And Renee will be on as well, I hope, because I'm inviting everyone who did the summit last time with us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rao.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.